Mostly women though, but it's
Okay.
a nice name. Great.
Okay.
So if you can just tell me a bit more about your background, that'll be really great.
Okay. So I'm originally from Barcelona, and I've been more than 15 years in sports and entertainment. I started actually with Cirque du Soleil in the sponsorship department when the European headquarters were in the Netherlands. That's where I started to work in sponsorship, which was a great experience because, of course, great brand, great activity, a lot of touring, shows, and was amazing to learn. And then back then I realized I really wanted to get into sports. Was a natural step for me to go from entertainment to sports. So I started with a small but very interesting sport, beach soccer, with a company based in Barcelona, actually, that back in the day had an agreement with FIFA for the World Cup, and we ended up, doing 3 World Cups, doing the European League, the qualifiers for the World Cup all over the world. So it was really, really interesting. I was running the sponsorship also then, and then came the opportunity to get into FIBA, the International Basketball Federation, based in Switzerland. So again, abroad, and it was great because, I experienced a World Cup, I experienced the 2012 Olympics, Eurobaskets, Americas. So, I got to see how the big sport is managed from the International Federation. And then I landed my dream job because FC Barcelona, international business was looking for somebody that, had international experience in sponsorship. And being from Barcelona, of course, that helped. And I landed that job, and it was phenomenal. It was almost 5 years, leading first international business, then the global sponsorship. And then it was, you can imagine, but FC Barcelona, all the projects that you can work on, on sponsorship, on digital, on, summer tours, you name it, So it was a fantastic experience. But I always like to change when the right time comes, and came the opportunity to be the commercial director, commercial and marketing director of AS Monaco. So basically, it gave me the opportunity to lead a full commercial department in a European club, and that's what I did at the end of 2017. Was there for 2 years and a half, and then I decided to start my own business. Which, what I do today is, to do consulting in sports business, to do commercial intermediation, as, sponsorship search, sponsorship deals. And then also, something new for me, but very interesting. I deal and cooperate with startups, with innovation programs, with sports funds. So, I try to open up my experience into sports, to innovation, new trends, and of course that leads me also to NFTs, what's happening on the digital ecosystem, which is very timely. So overall, long story short, or not that short, this is where I am today, dealing with different activities in the sports business world.
That's brilliant. That's an experience everybody in the sports industry wants to have, and you've already got it. You've done and dusted everything. So obviously GFN Sport is going to be the next chapter in your life, where you'll be taking up more consulting positions and, like you said, dealing with what's happening in the market currently. So talking about that, obviously we know NFTs and cryptos have, taken the sports, not just sports actually, just across industries by storm. So what is your view on that? Because there are still people who are a bit hesitant to get into, what we're talking, the metaverse. So what has been your experience, that is, if you are dealing with any NFT organization or a client, how good or bad is it going to be for the sports world?
Well, I think that it's gonna be good. I think that the reality is that we are seeing a new market industry, born and raised and growing up before our eyes, right? It's happening now. and we are all learning. That's the reality. And I think that some people are a bit reluctant, and I think it's not wrong. I think that the way I see it, and you see it in it happens in any market. You have a moment where it's going like this, and sometimes it's on early stages, because there's kind of a boom, and it creates a bit of a bubble, if you want, where there are many projects happening, and there's a lot of hype, and there is a lot of money, and so on, right? And then after this first phase of this market, then comes the stabilization of the market, in which not all the initiatives will be there, but the market will stay. And this, some people compare it, and rightly so, I think, with the early 2000s, right? When you had the dot-com bubble and boom, and everything was .com, and everything could be on the net. I mean, we know that many initiatives, fell and didn't work. But I think there's no dispute that, what happened there stayed in our lives, and it's still in our lives, right? But not all of them survived, because it was not sustainable. It was not right. So I think we're actually experiencing the same thing now. So basically, the NFTs, cryptos, etc., it's all enabled by the same technology of blockchain, right? And that's going to be in our lives, not only in sports, in everything we do. It's going to be there. So I think that it's right to be cautious, basically because many of the projects are very young, and you don't have a track record. You don't have 50-year-old company doing business, and then that for 10 years. No, some things are created yesterday, some things will be created tomorrow. So there's no track record, there is risk. So it depends how much of the risk you want to take, but there is no question that this is going to stay, and it's going to be part of our daily lives, and it's going to be part of the business of sports. But I think I would really recommend to be cautious, but to get into it, because you have to. Then everybody has to, every club, every league has to find the right way to do it. But the rush is never a good thing. I think that it's really about studying the market. What are the best ways? Minimize risk, and there's going to be a lot of trial and error. But that's let's say for NFTs. Fan tokens and this, for me, metaverse, it's even a different world, right? In which, in this case, we are really, really, really at the beginning. I don't think we can even comprehend what the metaverse will imply in our lives and in sports, right? We're going to see that in the coming years. So we are in a very, very early stage, where I think it's important to be part of it, and to do, to take some baby steps. But again, realizing that it's not a consolidated thing yet, is actually in the early stages. So we'll be learning as we go.
Absolutely. And you worked with FC Barcelona and AS Monaco with their commercial sponsorship side, and we've seen a lot of clubs have already established a good pace outside Europe, APAC, India, and other countries, US. We're seeing a full-fledged league going on there. So why would you say it's important for the clubs, to have themselves established outside their comfort zone, which is where they play mostly?
Well, I think there's one word that is always used, which is the fan monetization, right? How you monetize your fans. So naturally, if you can have a direct link with your fans all over the world, your fan base is automatically increased by millions, right? It's really, I'm sorry, I talk pure market and commercial, elements, right? I know football is way more than that, but it's really a business talk. So it's important that, you enlarge your market, right? At the beginning, if you focus on your season ticket holders, you just have a few thousand people, right? If you're lucky, like Barcelona or Bayern, you have over 100,000 members, for instance, right? But then how do you talk to the rest? How you enlarge that? Okay, then you have the non-ticket holders, but they are in your area, of influence, but the more you can expand that, the bigger your market will be. And that's fundamental for any club, any league. And we see it with football in the as you said, with all the regions that you mentioned, but we see it with the NBA. I think I always like to put the example of the NBA. For me, they are the pioneers of what we're doing in football. They went to China before anybody else, and they had an office there, and they put offices all over the world, and they created a global phenomenon. What the NBA means today, what it is today. I think that it's enlarging your market. And social media was the way. I mean, first was broadcasting, of course. Then social media was the way to really, count your digital followers and engage with them, with a lot of limitations. But that was what, again, social media enabled you. And now what Web 3.0 is enabling you is to involve them more and monetize them more, right? Because social media has been fantastic for the reach. It's been fantastic in terms of communication. It's been for the clubs, not for the platforms, for the clubs, not successful in terms of monetization of your fans. It's Facebook and Instagram who monetize your fans, right? That's a reality. It's the reality of the market. What Web 3.0 is enabling you is to actually, have a different relationship in which you monetize through fan tokens, NFTs, and others. And the bigger your fan base, the bigger your market, the bigger opportunities for monetization.
Absolutely. And also, I know you've sat with some of the best brands in the world because obviously you've been part of the negotiations, bringing in brands with the club. So how much has the commercial strategy evolved in the past decade?
Well, it has evolved a lot. I mean, because at the end, the sponsorship market needs to adapt to the brands and the companies, right? Even if sometimes, especially in football, this adaptation is quite slow, but it has evolved as much as the companies and the marketing departments and objectives of the companies have evolved. So let's say that 10 years ago and even more 15 years ago, the decisions were less rational, right? I would say after the financial crisis of 2008, when the budgets started to really be controlled, you needed really to have clear arguments why you sponsor this club or this league or this player, right? There's the companies had a lot of filters internally to demonstrate the ROI, of the investment, which is something that sometimes we don't want to hear in the sponsorship department about ROI and how much more I'm going to sell because I sponsor you. These are things that from the sponsorship departments in clubs, we had to adapt to demonstrate why we are a good proposition for them. And then this comes together with digital. Digital allows you to provide data, or should allow you to provide data. So let's say that at the beginning of the decade, it was more about, okay, I can prove you that, you can reach this amount of people, right? It was all about numbers. The bigger the number, the better, right? And digital following and all of these and broadcasting numbers. And, it was really to prove how your investment will put your brand in front of millions of consumers, etc. The evolution, it's been that now the brands want to know who are those fans, and this is where sports still suffering, and especially football, right? Like, are they potential consumers? Are they my consumers? Are they, I don't want to talk to 1 million people if I don't know who they are. I want to know if those guys are going to buy a car, or are going to buy, a fridge. And, is it a young audience? Is it an old audience? Is it a male audience? The female audience, where do they live? Because this is how a marketing department of a company operates. Like, this is my target. This is my consumer. I do, in all the rest of the marketing mix, everything is focused on that target logic. So in sports, they are thinking the same thing. So, the sports clubs and leagues need to prove that, by sponsoring me, you will be reaching your target, right? So there needed to be more and more work behind the scenes to prove that, to gather data, and then it's when the Nielsen of this world, came in with, clear data, the blink fires for digital, and all of these, because the clubs needed more and more arguments to convince the brands. So I think this has been the evolution. I remember the first contracts, sponsorship with FC Barcelona, the social media part was like this, was just one post here, one post there. And honestly, nobody really knew what it meant. And then you went to a more elaborate and complex, digital strategy. Digital, was not just a little paragraph, was one page of the contract, was involving the digital team. So all the data and digital has created a massive evolution in the commercial departments.
Absolutely. Tell me more about, your experience with FC Barcelona. I mean, I'm sure you went into the organization at a time when it was evolving, catching up to, like you said, digital transformation and evolving. So if you can just tell me maybe one experience or anything.
Yeah, I think that I can remember, as I said, the initial contracts, how it was really, and I know it sounds crazy, but it was really like, okay, what do we put in digital, right? What's relevant? I'm talking 2013, 2014, which it's not that long ago, but in digital, it's a long time ago, right? And I remember doing contracts saying, okay, we're gonna say one post per per month or per I don't know per quarter, but really was like, we don't know. Really, literally, we don't know. And many of the brands, to be fair, they didn't know either. So then I remember the moment where the head of digital came in and say, hey, we are putting here in sponsoring contracts posts and digital assets and so on, and nobody's calculating what it's worth, right? We don't know. I mean, what an LED minute value is. You know the logo in the backdrop. You have all of this monitored by Nielsen, but you are putting just digital, just like there's no value. It doesn't cost anything, so there's no value. So I remember that was a breakthrough. It was a breaking point on how we actually had to structure the contracts, because the industry was operating like this, like really the digital was just something that you put there, because it doesn't have any cost and nobody thinks about the value. And then it ended up being almost the other way around, in which the digital was extremely important for the brands, and in many cases was the basis of this, right? So I remember, and even with the Rakuten contract and all of these, these things were very important for them, were very, very important for them. I mean, bringing Rakuten was a way to, again, to work with a company that is basically a digital company as the core, right? So it's absolutely true that the partners help you to understand the market and to grow, because they force you to level up with them, because if you want them on board, you have to, So I remember the Rakuten one as a very important breakthrough, from growing from Qatar Airways, which was a classic airline type of agreement, to Rakuten, that they had, more than 20 product categories. They were in fintech, they were in e-commerce, they had apps and so on. All of a sudden, we enter into a new era of sponsorship agreements where, it was not as simple as it used to be.
Absolutely. And, also in the past 2 years, we've seen COVID has changed many things. The commercial strategy has further evolved because obviously when there was no on-ground activities, brands and clubs both had to find a way, to connect with the fans, and obviously everybody took the digital way, which worked the most because everybody was inside house and digital was the way to go about it. And also, I think where everyone is becoming more and more aware of the political side as well. I would say, like, people are keeping in mind the political relationship their countries are sharing with the other countries, and accordingly figuring out. For example, when this Ukraine-Russia war broke out, the first all the Russian partnerships, all the European clubs had to drop their Russian partnerships, like Aeroflot, Manchester United dropped Aeroflot. So similarly, how much influence do you think politics has on these clubs and vice versa? And you think they have to, collaterally, they have to exist together, mutually exist together, and or do you think clubs should be independent from the political side of the things?
Well, that's a complex one. I think that often there's this sentence, right, that says that politics and sports shouldn't be mixed. But I think it's a beautiful sentence, but I think has very little meaning in the practical world. Because what is politics? I think that politics I think it needs to stay away from actual political action. Like I support that political party, I support that politician. They need to stay out of this. But sometimes when we talk about politics, it's what happens in our society, right? And I don't think clubs and big institutions in sports can just ignore what's happening around them, right? And I think that we're seeing more and more involvement. I think the fans more and more expect the clubs to be I don't know if active, but at least be sensitive to some things, right? And I think that we see that with to give other examples, about Black Lives Matter, or some movements in the US. And is that politics? I don't think so. I think it's things that happen in society. Is the what's happening, unfortunately, in Europe politics? I mean, I don't think so. I think it's really a situation that it's happening, and that it's impossible to ignore. The problem of that is, where do you cross the line? Why this conflict and no other conflicts? It's a fair question, right? Why this topic and not this other topic? Who determines that? And I think that this is where it gets complicated for clubs to manage, right? I mean, there's some causes that you would say it's a no-brainer. You really think your club needs to support that, but then the reality makes you maybe run into contradictions. I remember FC Barcelona went to play in Saudi Arabia, a friendly match, and then they support the LGBTI rights, and they were criticized for playing in Saudi Arabia. So I don't think a club can stop their activity. I don't think the club is a judge to say, oh, I don't play here, oh, I don't do that, or this, because they need to run the club, and sometimes you need to do commercial deals, and again, who crosses the line, who determines where the line is. Why is good to do a deal with a certain country and not other? Who says who's the good and who's the bad? It's very sensitive. Sometimes it seems very obvious, but sometimes it's not. So I think the clubs needs to be sensitive, but it's a very, very thin line, which is, and you will do mistakes. So it's good. It's okay to be sensitive, but you cannot be responding to all the inputs, and you cannot make everybody happy, because you might say, for you, there's a cause that it's very obvious a club needs to support, and maybe other people don't think the same thing. So it's a very, very complicated balance to maintain.
Thank you for that wonderful answer, and I totally agree with what you said. My last question is, there've been a lot of talks about inclusion and diversity within the sports realm. Do you think it's superficially, or clubs and organizations are being considerate of it and are actually, taking that step, which was long required, which was long due actually, to ensure inclusion and diversity. I mean, or do you think it's just a buzzword? So everyone's trying to do it for the sake of doing it and not actually, purpose driven?
Again, it's a complex topic again. So I think, okay. So I think the clubs now are taking it seriously. I think that one of the things the club, I think they need to do, and it's good that they do, is to have the women's team, not only on football, on anything, to have this mirror for the girls of today and tomorrow. I think it's extremely important, right? I really do think so. I think that that's kind of the peak of the iceberg. There's so many things that need to happen behind or underneath that, right? But you need to start somewhere. So we need to be fair. We need to start somewhere. So I think that it's very important that the club does that. I think that it's very important that it's not only about having the first team, it's about having, the younger team. So, you can welcome the girls that want to play. I think it should happen in multiple sports, but I think it's good that football is taking the lead. I think it's an important thing. But then all of this, it goes beyond the pitch, right? I mean, I think as any other organization, they should work on what's happening in the management positions, in the office, in any department. I think it goes beyond that. So I think that there should be, in terms of diversity and inclusion, etc. I think just making a women football team, it's not enough. I mean, it's the flagship, and it's important to have a flagship because that inspires many other things, but other things need to follow. So I think that there's a lot to do still in sports, but I think the movement, because I would like to call it a movement of support to women's football, I think it goes into that direction, and that's good. But to be fair, I don't think we should put everything on the club's shoulders, right? I think that, you can launch your football club, your women's team or your women football club, but you need a league to compete. You need a good championship. You need a good broadcasting. You need exposure. You need the sponsors to join. It's all of these. It's a circle. Like it happens in any activity, in any sport. And it will not happen in 1 year. I mean, I know that. I mean, it's logical, but we need brands that sponsor more, for instance. That will help to support, because the reality is that you create your football team, women football team in a club. It's a loss economically. It's a loss, right? And that's it. I mean, it's the way it is. And when you launch something, it could be the case. But it will help a lot if there are sponsors interested, if there is a good broadcast behind, the agreement with DAZN and UEFA. It's great, but it needs to go down to each country and create a structure in which it's growing and growing and growing, and then it creates a real ecosystem for women's football as well as with other sports. So, it's not only about the clubs. The clubs are the ones, of course, that need to put the players together, but they need an ecosystem where this is sustainable, because otherwise you are asking the club to invest in something that, there's no, again, in this case, there's no return on investment. So, I think, to be fair, we need to work on league with the federations, with the sponsors, with the broadcasters, and slowly we're going to see something that is more and more tangible and more useful, I think, for society. But it's in the right direction.
Absolutely. And obviously, like you said previously, like there has to be some commercial returns, to keep everything going. And it's very important. I know we talk a lot about equal pay, but then there are so many things one has to keep in mind, the number of viewers, and thankfully, which is increasing. And as as it increases further and further, it'll be more beneficial, not just for the women in sport, but I think for the entire sporting industry combined. Thank you so much, Julie. I shall transcribe everything and send it over to you so that you can have a look before I publish it. Please expect this by next week, because we're just getting us a website to a different server, and it will take time for me to transcribe this as well. And just personally, I also want to ask you this question, because I have worked as a consultant for the Indian market with Manchester United, and I know, and I'm very happy that FC Barcelona, they have a dedicated person for the Indian thing. I think I spoke with him. Jordi Camps. I remember, you must know him, the APAC guy, Jordi. Yeah. So I remember he put me in touch with the person who was dedicated only for the Indian market, which was very surprising. And I reached out to Richard Arnold, who hired me in Manchester United as an intern when I was in the UK, and I told him that see, like, they've hired someone specifically for India, and FC Barcelona still has fewer followers in India than Manchester United. So I was just trying to pitch them hard that they should have an Indian person on board. But then unfortunately, when things were, they started rolling, COVID happened. But we're trying to, get that conversation on the table again. So if I need any tips, I'll come to you.
Of course.
Thank you so much. And good luck with your venture. I'm sure, if you want in the Indian ecosystem, if you want to be connected with anyone anytime, please, you can always just let me know. I'll be very happy.
No, let's be in touch. I appreciate that a lot. Thank you for your time and the good questions. And looking forward to the interview.
I'll send you the transcribed document by weekend, if that's okay with you.
Yeah, no problem. It's Easter weekend, so here, don't worry. It can be next week.
And you're going to be on Easter break, so I don't want to spoil that. So whenever
no, it's okay. Time. I mean, just to say that don't rush, in the weekend, because it's Easter weekend. And I'll be away, so I mean, don't worry about that. Don't worry.
Perfect. All right. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Bye-bye. Thank you, Teresa. Ciao. Bye-bye.